As his kingdom grew, his heart turned to stone. Pride came quietly and spread its roots in silence. One day, he went too far and announced, "I am your God. Worship to me." He placed his statues in every square.
Hii itafika only 30 sana.
Gold, silver, and bronze. But the greatest idol was himself. People were to worship him. The punishment for those who did not was clear: death. The temples were no longer only places of worship. They became centers of production. Hundreds of workers carved idols day and night. Idols representing the moon, statues for the sun, and shapes of the stars. The state even had an official duty: minister of temples. Darkness had grown so deep that deviation became a state policy. As you watch this video about the hidden secrets between Nimrod and Ibrahim alayhi salam, you will hear Shaitan's role in this story for the first time. Before we begin, a small reminder: to not miss videos like this, subscribe to the channel and do not forget to like the video so it can reach more people. If you're ready, let's begin. That night, Nimrod saw a terrible dream. The sky was torn apart. A new light appeared. That light was so strong that it put out the light of the sun, the moon, and all the stars. Nimrod trembled on his throne. Then a shadow appeared. A man came closer, stretched out his hand, and pulled Nimrod from his throne to the ground. His awakening was terrible. He was covered in sweat. His hands were shaking. He immediately called the astrologers, star readers, soothsayers, magicians, all gathered in the darkest room of the palace. He told them the dream. Silence fell. Then the oldest astrologer spoke. "O our ruler, a new religion will come. The one who brings it will destroy your throne. Take your measures now." Nimrod's face turned to stone. What should be done? All male children to be born must be killed. The decision was made that night. By morning, the decree was read street by street. Every male baby born in Babylon will be killed. Murderers went from door to door. Mothers' screams rose to the sky. Babies were torn from their arms. Swords fell. Blood flowed. 100,000 babies lost their lives. The waters of the Euphrates turned red. One of the greatest massacres in history took place. Babylon was now a great graveyard. It was in those days that the mother of Ibrahim alayhi salam was pregnant. Her name was Amathlai. Amathlai could hardly breathe from fear. The baby in her womb grew every day, and the danger came closer each day. She could not tell her husband, Azar. Azar was a temple worker. He was loyal to Nimrod. He would do anything to increase his status. The day of birth came closer. The pains began. Amathlai turned to Azar and lied. "Go to the temple and pray to the idols. If I give birth to a boy, I will bring him to you. You will take him to Nimrod. This way, your status will increase." Azar left. Amathlai did not miss the chance. The pains became stronger, but she could not give birth at home. Neighbors would hear. Executioners would come. With an old blanket in her hands, she went out of the city in the darkness. Her feet were bare. Every step increased the pain. She could not breathe, but she could not stop. When she reached the cave, the moon was in the sky. On the cold stones, completely alone, Ibrahim alayhi salam was born. The baby did not cry. He only opened his eyes. There was a light in those eyes. He looked at his mother. Trembling, Amathlai took the child in her arms and breastfed him. Then she wrapped him in the old blanket and placed him in the darkest corner of the cave. She quickly returned home. Everything had to look normal before Azar came back. When Azar arrived, Amathlai was crying. "The child was born very weak," she said. "He died immediately. I buried the body somewhere outside." Azar believed her. He even felt relieved. "That is good," he said. "At least I did not get into trouble." From that night on, her life was divided into two. By day, she was a normal woman. By night, with the courage of a desperate mother, she left the city in the darkness and went to the cave. Every night, whenever she could, she was there. She breastfed the baby, kissed him, and cried. When she left, the cave was silent and the baby was alone. But he was not without care. One day, she noticed the truth. The baby was sucking his fingers. At first, she thought it was normal. Then she looked closer and froze. Something was flowing from between his fingers. Honey, milk, date juice. Jibril alayhi salam, by the command of Allah, was feeding that baby every night. When the mother did not come, Ibrahim was not alone. Angels were standing guard over him. The child grew. He grew fast. At 1 year old, he was like a 5-year-old. At 5, like a 10-year-old. His mind was sharp. His eyes were deep. His words were mature. Amathli looked at her child's face. These eyes looked different. There were signs of deep iman. While executioners were hunting babies outside, Ibrahim was growing deep in the cave with the lullaby of angels. Days followed weeks. Weeks followed months. Ibrahim was growing much faster than others his age. The cave became both his cradle and his school. Those eyes shining in the darkness would soon tear apart the deep darkness covering all of Babylon. The rule of idols had already begun to shake. While Nimrod raised his cup in his palace, drunk with victory, he did not know that his real end was growing in a cave with divine power. The wheels of destiny had begun to turn, and the dawn of Tawhid was about to rise. Years passed. The child who grew in that lonely cave with the breath of Jibril and the grace of Allah was now ready to step onto the earth. When he went down to the city, what he saw crushed his soul. The streets were crowded, people were in a rush, but all of them seemed tied to each other with invisible chains. The squares were full of statues carved from stone and wood. Some people bowed in front of them. Some poured oil on lifeless stones. Some begged for mercy from dolls they made with their own hands. Ibrahim was shocked by what he saw. What kind of blindness was this? How could a human worship what he himself created? Here, a truth of fitra, a law of Allah, becomes clear at once. If a child grows up without being shaped by society, he stays on fitra and naturally believes in one Allah. He finds belief in human-made pagan gods strange. Ibrahim protected this pure fitra he was born with. As he walked among the people, his steps unknowingly brought him in front of a workshop. The place smelled of dust, wood shavings, and heavy paint. Inside, an old man was shaping a hard log with a chisel. His face was tired, his hands were rough with calluses. This man was Azar, Ibrahim's father, Nimrod's chief sculptor. Ibrahim entered. Azar raised his head. He looked at the young man standing before him with a face full of light. They say blood recognizes blood. A movement stirred in Azar's heart. Later, when his wife told him the truth, he would understand that this was his son. The years of hiding, the secret of the cave would be revealed. When Azar learned that he had a son, he was happy. But this joy was mostly worldly. He was not happy because his son was alive, but because a new strength had come. Someone to work as his apprentice and help sell his idols. Azar was hard, like the stones he carved. One day he said to his son, "Come, help me. We must finish these gods by tomorrow." Gods? Ibrahim stepped closer to the workbench. Azar was carving the eyes of an idol, blind eyes. Then he carved its ears, deaf ears. With every strike of the hammer in his father's hand, Ibrahim saw how weak that idol was. "Father," Ibrahim said. His voice was clear, like water flowing in the noisy workshop. "This thing you are carving, can it hear you?" Azar stopped. The hammer froze in the air. "Of course it hears," he replied angrily. "It is our God." "But you made its ears," Ibrahim said. "You carved its eyes. If it falls, it cannot stand up. How can it help you?" Azar growled in anger. "Be quiet. Do not speak against the gods of Babylon. Take the statues to the market. Shout, who will buy what cannot harm or benefit? Ibrahim carried the idols, but when he reached the market, he did not do what his father said. He dragged the idols by their feet. He covered them in dust and dirt. In front of the shocked eyes of the people, he pushed the lifeless logs into the river. Drink, he said to the piece of wood. You are thirsty, come on, drink. The people were stunned. Had this young man lost his mind? He was mocking the objects they considered sacred. But Ibrahim was not mad. He was the only sane one in a society that had lost its mind. That day, no one bought an idol, but a seed of doubt fell into everyone's mind like a poisonous vine. What if they really cannot drink? Night fell. Babylon fell asleep, but Ibrahim was awake. When the noise of the city stopped, the great silence of the sky began. Ibrahim moved away from the city and climbed a hill. He wanted to escape the air of idol worship that burned his chest and breathed the truth. He was alone, but he was with his Rab. He raised his head. The sky covered him like black velvet, and in that endless darkness, a bright star appeared, the Venus star. It was so bright that the people of Babylon worshipped it. They offered sacrifices to it. Ibrahim looked at the shining light of the star. He tested the belief of his people in his mind. Is this my Rab? He said to himself. Surah Al-An'am 76. The star ruled the sky for a while. Its light pierced the darkness. But as the night moved on and the world turned, that bright light became weak. It slid toward the horizon and finally disappeared into the darkness. It set. A painful smile appeared on Ibrahim's face. How could a god disappear? How could a creator hide behind the horizon he created? How could something tied to place, time, and movement be a god? He spoke to the night. I do not love those that set. Surah Al-An'am 76. Short, clear, sharp. What sets, leaves, dies, or disappears cannot be a god. The heart cannot attach itself to what is temporary. Then he waited. On the horizon, the moon rose like a silver plate. It was full, bigger than the star, closer, more impressive. It had a cold and noble light that turned night into day. Ibrahim looked at it. Is this my Rab? He said. The moon moved across the sky. It passed through the clouds. But when dawn came close, its rule also ended. Its light faded, its color weakened, and it disappeared before the light that announced the sun. It too was defeated. Ibrahim's faith became firm. Even the lights of the sky obeyed a law. They were not rulers, they were ruled. If my Rab does not guide me, I will surely be among the misguided people, he said. Surah Al-An'am 77. And then the eastern horizon turned red. Darkness pulled back like a blanket. The sun rose in all its glory. It swallowed the star and erased the moon. It looked like the only ruler of the sky. It was the greatest god of the people of Babylon. Ibrahim narrowed his eyes. Is this my Rab? This is greater than all of them, he said. Surah Al-An'am 78. The sun rose higher, reached its peak, and burned the earth. But when evening came, that huge ball of fire also bowed its head. It sank beneath the earth in the western horizon, leaving a blood-red trace behind. Darkness took over the world. Even the greatest had sank. Even the strongest had been defeated. Ibrahim stood. There was an unseen power that turned the star, the moon, and the sun, that made them rise and set, that drew their paths. The stones of Babylon, the bodies in the sky, all of them were weak. He turned to his people. On his face was the dignity of prophethood. In his eyes were the flashes of Tawheed. He cried out to the people and to his father, "O my people, I am free from what you associate with Allah. I have turned my face completely toward the one who created the heavens and the earth from nothing, and I am not of those who associate partners." Surah Al-An'am 79. These words echoed on the walls of Babylon. But their strongest echo would be inside the house of his father, Azar. Ibrahim returned home. The workshop was still filled with the same heavy smell. Azar stood in front of a finished idol, looking at his work with admiration. Ibrahim sat beside his father. This time his voice was not questioning, but inviting. Still, his words were sharp. "My father," he said gently, "why do you worship things that do not hear, do not see, and bring you no benefit?" Surah Maryam 4.
Thank you guys for tuning in to my live. Allah our bless popote mlipo. Until next time, have been your host Habiba Hamisi. Ma'assalam.